Sean Morris with Truth, Lies, and Political Bullshit.
Yep, and this is Tim here with the Fifth Ward. Hey, let's just get right into it, Sean. I want to talk quickly about the great job that DBW did with the snow removal this time.
Yeah.
Okay, we're supposed to get a ton of snow. We got a little bit less than what we were supposed to have, but anyway, streets are clear. The guys were out as quickly as they can get them out. But anyway, I just want to thank all the DBW crews out there. Police, fire, everybody.
Yeah, when you think about the city as a whole, there's one department that is vital to so many different parts of the operation. They don't get all the accolades, but the DPW are just an important part of this city, and they do a phenomenal job. When I worked for the city and when I was the mayor of the city, you count on these guys and gals, and boy, they really make things happen. But I think we're blessed that we didn't get 18 inches of snow because, it always comes back in our conversations about this crazy ambulance and the $50,000 a month, which is an embarrassment in
Oh yeah,
itself. But many of the DPW workers said they didn't get called in till after 12 o'clock. They called in 5. Now, if we were
yeah.
getting a 2 to 3 inches of snow an hour like we were supposed to, and nobody knew we weren't because it was coming down at that time, they only called in a handful of guys because they can't afford it because they're paying 50,000 a month for the ambulance,
Yeah.
and that's something we talked about. That was going to happen. You can't
Yep.
sustain a $50,000 cost when you don't budget it. Trying to find a $500,000 when you never had to find it before, and spending money like lunatics that they do in this city is going to come back to haunt them. It really is. But
Well,
kudos to the guys that did get out there and plow, and thank you for your service.
yep. Yep. And while we're handing out the kudos there, I want to take a moment and thank Ed Kinner out there when we had the problem with the fire over there in Johnson Avenue. Okay. He led the charge in helping the families there, getting donations, shelter, TNT towing. They made storage space available for some of the things that Ed was able to collect so that eventually we'll be able to distribute that stuff out to the families. So I want to say a special thanks to Ed Kinner,
Yeah,
okay, who led that charge.
and Shelley Wojcik as well. Listen,
Yeah,
there's a lot of names
yep,
that can be mentioned, and I'd be remiss if I tried to mention them all because I just can't remember all the names because there's so many
yeah,
people. But I would be remiss if I didn't mention Shelley only because
yep,
she has helped in every single disaster that I know of in the city, all the way back to when I was a rookie firefighter and the mayor. Shelley's, she's a Cohoesier through and through. And so Ed Kenner, don't believe for one second he did this for any other reason than he's a good guy because he's done these things time and time again. Has nothing to do with him running for mayor. I don't even know if he's still running or not. He did what he had to do because it was the right thing to do. So to Ed and to Shelley and to Tommy Brennan, TNT, and everybody, if we didn't say your name, it ain't because we don't love you and we don't respect you and we don't want to give you the kudos. But there were so many that I cannot remember every single person. But everybody who did chip in, you really made a difference, and you always make a difference. And that's why Cohoes is such a great little city.
yep,
And it is
yep,
a city now, mind you, Timmy. Right? It was a city that
yeah,
was
yeah.
established back
In
in
1869, yeah.
1869. Now, I want to show you something because the fact that we,
Now,
we're a city and we've yet, well, I shouldn't say yet because you and I on the show have mentioned it 50 times and we've brought it to the city's attention, I don't know how many times. And those who really care about the history of the city understand how big a deal it is when the person who's running the city doesn't know its birthday. And those who stick up for him and say, oh, it's only a date, they're morons.
yeah.
But I want you to read this. I want to see if I can put this up here. Can you see that? It says
I,
Spindle City Historic Society. Now, they're the people who are in charge of our history.
yeah.
And they have on their website on May 19th, 1869, Cohoes became a city. Isn't that amazing? And then Wikipedia says Cohoes was established 1869. And what I found really funny, well, I don't even know if it's funny because it cost about $30,000 is that all these beautiful gateway signs that I brought in that said Cohoes proud, and I'm really proud because they were beautiful, and I didn't pick them. The citizens picked them. We put a thing out and said these are all the options. What do you think are the best options? And they picked those signs, and we put them up. Then in comes the new mayor who tries to erase everything that we did, and he puts up this beautiful sign. Can you see that? City of Cohoes, 1870 to 2020, 150 years. Well, congratulations that you don't even know when the city's birthday is and you didn't know when it was incorporated. But we'll give this show some credit because long and behold, Timmy, look what popped up. A new city sign that has no dates on it. And it
Yeah.
has some writing that I can't even read, especially when you're driving by or if you look real fast. Now my question is, are they going to take all those signs and replace them all again? Or have to retrofit them all again for another 30,000? Are we going to spend 60,000 in gateway signs because we don't know the birthday of the city?
Well, look at if you're aware, okay, I did a Fifth Ward podcast just released a few days ago, and they talked all about what happened back there in 1869, okay? And the legislation was 73 pages long, and the village trustees at the time, they were called trustees, it was their duty and obligation to carry on all of the same things that were going on with the city as it was when it was granted its charter. And what the legislature said is that the village trustees would be running the city of Cohoes, even once it became a city, until April 18, 1870. And based on that, you got guys like Chris Briggs coming on out and saying, look, that's when the city of Cohoes became a city. But it's not true.
Well,
It
all they have
became
to
a,
do,
yeah,
all they
it
have to
was,
do is look at the seal. Every time that we have to put the seal of the city on something, it says not. It
18,
doesn't say
yeah,
1870.
yeah.
And
So what
everybody
happened? Right.
knows.
So
It's just
right.
ridiculous.
So what happened on April 12th is when there was the election, okay, for the first mayor. Now, prior to that, it wasn't called a mayor. He was called the president of the village of Cohoes. And the village trust they were called trustees. But on April 12th, when we had an election, then you formally had a mayor who was elected Charles Adams, and then you had four council members for the four wards, and each of these members were called a common council member. Then here's the key: the legislature was so well aware of doing basically it was a template that they were using for all other
The charter
villages.
is a template. Even
Right,
our charter
it's a
is.
template, right? So they said Cohoes would start formally behaving and acting as a city on April 19, 1870, when you had your new mayor and your new council in place. But up until the day before, the villagers trustee
Yeah. So what
kept
happened is
every.
like
So it
any
was a
other.
transition.
Right. It was a transition. The city was incorporated not in 70, but
No,
69.
no. And I was a freshman in high school when they had the
Listen,
100
I
year
wasn't the smartest
centennial.
guy in the block, but I can tell you this. I did some history. When I was the mayor, I looked at all of the
Yeah,
history. You read all the books about the city. You want to know as
yeah,
much as you can. You have to intentionally not want to know anything to just come out with the wrong date. And
yeah,
so when you're born, I was born April 18th. They celebrated my birthday a year later, right?
yeah. 1 year
So
later.
if the
Yeah.
city was incorporated in 70, it'd be 71 when it was its birthday, if using their math,
They
right?
should have simply went 2019 to 20 what was it 20 it would have been what would they would have put on the
28.
sign? It would have been 150 years would have been 2018, no, 1869, and the 150 would have brought us to 150 years would have been in the year 2019. That's what it would have
Well,
been.
we were scheduled, right. We were going to have a big city shingding for the
Yeah, but they were
150th
busy
years.
hanging you
But
instead
they were
of
busy hanging me,
right.
and it never got off the ground.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, then COVID came, and then you had a mayor who wanted to change the date because he didn't know what date the city was incorporated,
Yeah.
and it just became a cluster, right? So at the
Yeah.
end of the day, I just had to throw that out there because
Yeah.
I was really happy to think that, and they can say it had nothing to do with us. That's what they would say anyway. But we talked about it so much that somebody finally said, "Hey, you got the wrong dates on the sign. Get
Yeah.
them off. Put the sign up and just put something on it because they're
Yeah.
already ugly anyway, right? I mean,
Right. Right. Right.
they are not these beautiful gateway signs.
No.
They are John McDonald. It looks like John McDonald's when he had his sign was the middle of it, and it's the
Yeah.
same old people running the same old show, running the same old city,
Yeah.
and we're
Yeah.
all going in the same direction they all did, which is backwards. But there has been some pretty good things happening, and again, we talked about the grants. But hey, Quiet Riot is coming to the music hall. Did I hear that?
Really.
I thought I heard that. Now I don't
I
know if
didn't
that's
see.
true.
Well, I didn't see it on the list. Okay. Usually I get emails, but that might have been added in for the end of the year.
Well, I
Okay.
thought it was coming. Quiet Riot. I mean, I got to look that up real quick, Timmy, while we're
Yeah.
talking.
What
But
is it? We're not going to take it
we're not going to take it anymore.
anymore.
That's the whole
That's it.
reason I
So
want to know if they're coming. I want to
they're
go.
gonna they're gonna blame you for bringing Quiet Riot in.
Well, I'll take the blame for that.
So while you're looking that up, look at. I want to let the people know. Look at the narrative that they put out about the incorporation of the city. Okay, they relied on a book written by James Maston. Okay, James Maston essentially was backing the Republican Party back then. It was a new Republican Party, and it was the candidate for president. Okay, eventually got nominated was Abraham Lincoln. Now, what happened with Maston? So long as you had a Republican president in office, and this is going 4 or 5 presidents beyond the assassination of Lincoln,
Yep.
then Maston kept getting reappointed as a postmaster because it's a federal position. As soon as they got a Democrat in the office, and that was in the year of the 1886,
Yep.
Maston was out. Okay, so the guy, he was biased when he wrote his book. All right, and this is what they relied on to say, oh, it was 1870. No, 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 no. Maston got it all wrong because he was basically the Randy Kanifka of the day. Okay, you had to give him a job, and otherwise he's going to come out and badmouth you down the road. Okay, and
Well, listen,
essentially that's what
I
happened.
think by now we beat that issue to
Yep,
death. And guess what they did? They
they
removed the
changed the
wrong
time.
dates. So hey, we got them to do something by just
Yep,
having a show that talked about the stupid date on the sign that they didn't know the right date of the city. But hey,
yeah,
Friday, October 13th, 2023, Quiet Riot playing at the music hall.
wow,
I can't wait to get my ticket. Then I also seen Tiffany. I remember when I was a kid, she was a big pop star too.
yeah,
So it's great to see that people are touring again, and they can fit our size facility.
yeah,
And that facility, when I spent all the time on it trying to get it open, when Mr. Keeler told a crowd of people that I wasted their money by putting new windows in it, and now he's got grants to fix it. It's the greatest thing since sliced bread. I'm so happy that it's getting the facelift that it needs because
yeah,
it is the engine that makes Cohoes run. And
yeah,
if you can get 25, 30,000 people like we had going to that building, the the restaurants and bars throughout the city, not just Rumson Street, but throughout the
yeah,
city, can thrive.
yeah.
And we had them thriving, Timmy.
Mm-hmm.
There wasn't a day that you couldn't go down there and it was packed. We couldn't even park down there. So kudos to getting some great shows booked in the music hall.
Yeah,
Whether
Park
it's still
Playhouse.
Holly Brown
Uh,
who's
uh,
doing some of those shows, or it's Owen Smith, or they're doing it and they're working together. I think Chris Briggs was one of the guys that really made the music hall start to fade away. I'll tell you a funny story about that. So I like Owen Smith, and we brought Owen in because we really want to have more than just the music hall. We want to have the outside park that we got millions of dollars to
right, yeah.
to renovate
In Canal Square, and
in Canal Square.
they're using the space right above the Cafe Monaco. That's where they actually go in and rehearse. Did you know that?
Yeah, well, they were. I don't know if that place is still open. And there's also places within the music hall that we were trying to get built so they could rehearse in there. But the reality was, Owen Smith is a big player in Park Playhouse, which is one of the premier kid theater groups in the country. And they're supported by some of the richest and biggest businesses and corporations locally. And they just do an amazing, amazing job. And so we wanted to bring Park Playhouse to the downtown in the summer so we could have some of these plays for people to come to the park who not always want to hear music, right? There's people that like plays. And he was going to have the plays with the kids in the park. He was also going to have plays with inside the music hall, and he was going to work with Holly Brown, who to me is the shining star of the music hall. She was the one who took it from death and resurrected it to become the number one music hall in the capital region for small music venues. And I think they got it again. And I'll give kudos to Owen too, because I think Owen's a very smart and he does a good job. But Holly Brown is really the gold star. And so Holly Brown's contract was up. And we were paying about $100,000, $125,000 a year. Then we would recoup some of it through the ticket sales. But at the end of the day, just like we do for swimming pools and everything else, it was our project. We had to pay to make it flourish. And our contribution to the economic development was about $100,000 a year minus the ticket sales to bring in 25,000 people that would flood our city and allow me to bring in businesses, right? Makes
Yeah, yeah,
sense?
yep, I agree.
So
And that happened.
we were trying to renegotiate Holly Brown's contract, and there was this guy who was a councilman named Chris Briggs, who's still a councilman, but he ain't running no more. He was going behind everybody's back trying to cut a deal with with Owen to take Holly's place and get rid of Holly.
Yeah,
So
I
that's the
remember
kind of
that. Yes.
dirty rat that that guy is, right? So
Yeah,
he's
yeah,
trying to cut out the woman who brought this place back to life and use the guy that we brought in to supplement and complement her for the plays because that's his specialty, right?
yeah,
And even up until a couple months ago, I don't know if they still are, Holly was the one booking all of the bands, but she was not working for the city no more. So
hmm,
the city said, "Oh, well, we didn't have to pay Owen. We're not paying no more money, so we're going to do it." Owen did it for free. Now, I wasn't very happy with Owen, and I told him, I said, "Owen, I think that's a shitty thing to do because you just cut the throat of the people that brought you here." But politics is dirty, and being that it's dirty, and that's the way the game is played, I guess it's all fair in love and war, right?
yep,
But it was Chris Briggs that led to the downfall of the music hall for a period of time. I still think it has a long way to go before it's booming like Holly Brown got it booming. But I think if Owen is putting all his attention to it, and Holly's still helping him book some shows, I think together they'll do a good job. But when they cut her out, when Keeler, who to me is, I don't know how you run the state police and be so incompetent. Doesn't say a
yeah,
whole hell of a lot for the state police.
yeah,
And I'm not saying that about the state troopers themselves. I'm talking about the organization. Because running the city, he's just clueless. But he cut Holly out, and everything spiraled out of control. And as you can see right now, when you go downtown, I guarantee you, if after this podcast, we took our podcast on the road and went downtown between all of the establishments that ain't closed because there's nobody in them, we won't find 100 people in the city. You won't find
yeah,
probably 50 people in the city.
right,
And that's
yeah,
really sad when at one point there was, five, six, seven, 800 people every night packing the downtown.
yeah. I don't know whether this ever actually followed through, but if you remember when your brother Johnny, he did a concert down at the music hall.
Yeah, it
Remember
was,
that
yeah.
last
Owen,
year?
Owen had him.
His birthday.
Yeah, he did a great,
Yeah.
great bash.
Well, right. He told me that I don't know. Depends on how many beers he had. Okay, but he told me that um, somewhere in April, I believe, is his birthday, and he
Yeah.
might be able to get go in there and do another concert this
I
year.
don't know because
I don't know.
last time I talked to him, he wasn't going to play no more. But
Uh,
listen, I give kudos to Owen. I like
yeah,
Owen. I really think
yeah,
he's a really smart guy. The problem with me is that I thought he had a learning curve, and we didn't have time to have that learning curve.
yeah,
Now, if he worked with Holly and learned her end of the trade and she learned his end of the trade and they complemented each other, I think the music hall would have been 5 times bigger
Yeah.
and we could have got up to 50, 60,000 people a year packing that place. Maybe
And
that's a little high, maybe
right.
that's a wish, but
Well,
let's say 45,000 people a year
yeah.
going in and out. But when they got rid of Holly, there was a learning curve for Owen. I think
Yeah.
he'll get there. I think he does a good job. I give him kudos. I'm really proud of him. I'm glad I was part of bringing him to the city. Don't like how it all unfolded, but I blame Chris Briggs for being a rat, going behind people's backs and trying to circumvent it because Chris doesn't like music. He likes to sit down and just
Well, he did
have
the
his.
same thing with the Kelman's property too. He went
Well, he
behind
did it with the Kelman's.
Randy's. He's just he is a rat.
Yeah, it's unfortunate because everybody thinks he's like this real nice guy, but let me tell you
No,
something.
he's the one that
Behind,
screwed. Right, he's the one that screwed up the dates for for the incorporation. Happened
yeah,
on his watch.
yeah, just all I'm saying is that, behind your back, I couldn't trust that man as far as you could throw him, and I
No,
couldn't lift him up to throw him far
no,
enough. That's the
no.
truth. But
He asked me, and he says I'm mean.
yeah,
I'm not
well,
mean. I'm just telling. I'm telling it
see,
like it is.
I'm a
It's
straight
true.
shooter, so
Truth.
sometimes I say
Right.
things and I say, why did I say that? Where's my bar of soap? But I'd
Right.
rather be me than be
Yep.
the secret little rat that goes behind your back and
Yeah.
chews at the wires all the time, chew, chew,
Yeah.
chew, and
Yeah.
he's just trying to, break down great progress because
Well,
he's.
right. And you know me. I tell it like it is. How I
We had a
say it.
million dollar. We had $1 million restaurant that wanted to come to the first floor, and they were going to
Yeah.
hold productions before each show.
Mm-hmm.
So we would have had and even the restaurant owners in the city said, "Hey, this would be great because this is one of the great restaurant owners in the country. This guy
Yeah.
is when you have those kind of restaurants, people
Yeah.
then visit the other. You don't always want to have this, high end
Yeah.
dining, but you go there and you end up down at somebody else's spot and you go, I like this, and they start coming back. That's what was happening. We were becoming a destination instead of just a downtown for a small city.
Yeah.
But he held that up. The place could burn down. Like it can't burn down now. I
Right.
mean, I mean,
Right.
if you had to put a restaurant in there, actually, it would have been far more safer because it would have had to meet every fire safety code in the in
Yeah.
the world today, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of the music halls across the country, that's what they did. They brought in great eateries, and it helped spur the actual venue. But again, that was another thing that
And I think there was some resistance to a restaurant or something else in there by the what we like to call our information center or
So
what do
so
you
what
call it?
happened was we got a big grant and we redid the whole entire. So if anybody ever visited the visitor center downstairs from the
Yeah.
music hall, 95% of all of the artifacts were from Troy.
Hmm.
They weren't even Cohoes artifacts. It
Right.
was pathetic. It was just hard to believe that you go to a Cohoes visitor center and there's more stuff about other parts of the capital
Yeah.
region.
Right.
So we got a big grant and we hired some real smart technical people, and we wanted to make a replica of the locks that actually flowed water, so that we could bring kids down as part of like a school trip, and they could actually see how the locks worked and floated the boats. And we had an actual movie that
Yeah.
would deal with Cohoes, and it was really going to be, and it is right now, the state of the art. It's beautiful, but what we were going to do is move that to one of the downtown business stores. Somebody bought one of the stores, and we were going to pay the rent to put our visitor center in there. But we had the
Yeah.
money generating from other places, so it wouldn't have cost the city any money. We would have had it in the downtown. It would have been in a nicer location, more updated, bigger, so that it could
Yeah.
actually represent all of Cohoes, but they didn't want to do that either. So everything was a battle, a battle, a
Yes.
battle.
Yeah. Yeah. It would have been a great idea to move that somewhere else and then you know get a restaurant in there. I thought that was a great idea, and it would have been an opportunity to bring in more visitors. I would also like to see, and I don't know the mechanics of it, but Rock the Block to go maybe 2 more weeks longer than it does.
Yeah, I get, it's a hit and miss thing because a lot of people take off in the summer.
Yeah,
And so
like
when
in
you ever,
August.
right, when you ever rock the block, you're not paying $100 for a band.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? You're paying thousands.
right.
I mean, we
That's
would
true.
spend 25,000 on the bands.
You
We
would
would
bring shows in from New York City and
right. We would
out
be
out of state.
right, but we would also not pay a nickel of taxpayer money, and we'd actually put about 35, forty
Yeah.
thousand into our coffers. So Rock the Block not only turned into one of the biggest music venues in the city, but it became one of our cash cows. And every
Yes.
year our cash was getting bigger and bigger and bigger because the concerts got bigger. And then, I had the grand old plan that we were going to have a couple concerts that would have just like knocked the socks off. We were just trying to work through the details and have like a concert up in Lansing's Park where we
Right.
could have
Right.
10, 15, 20,000 people up there. I don't know
And
how. I'm
even
just,
down on the island too. You know.
well, then we also had looked for smaller venues to play down in the new park on the island.
Yes.
And we were going to have something like the food cart rodeo where you'd have like 20 different food carts down there and people would be able to go and there'd be a concert and just more things for the city to do, more things for
Yes.
the people to do, more reasons to want to come and live in the city. They were all great ideas. I wish I had a chance for those ideas to come to fruition because instead I get to watch a lot of the things we did dying off now. But we had a lot of great ideas and the island would have been packed. And it takes time. We had to build the city first. If you don't have a nucleus, Tim, you can't have a city, right? The city had to
Yeah.
start with the downtown and then it had to spread out. And it was spreading out and it was starting to spread out. We wanted to help the restaurants on the island by having some, you know, days on the island when we had
Yeah.
block parties. And so we had a lot of stuff going on. It'll be interesting to see where where we go in the next couple years.
Well, what I'd like to say on the positive end, okay, I think that for me, Eating the Street has ran its course. I do know that the state liquor authority did extend to the year 2025 to be able to have municipalities have uh, be able to do liquor licenses extended on out into the public streets. So that was extended, but I just think that we're over with COVID, and I think as a city, me personally, I think we should move on from the Eaton Street. I mean, how many restaurants now really are benefiting from that
Yeah.
down there?
Yeah.
Three, four,
Listen,
five.
I think anything you do that draws people to the downtown is important, but you can't overdo it either, right? Because if you
Yeah,
overdo it, it just becomes, instead of being exciting, it just becomes the norm.
yeah,
Rock the Block's exciting because every Thursday there's a new band and everybody can't wait to see
yes.
who the next band is. But the Eating the Streets is going to be repetitive. It's going to be the same thing. So maybe it's something that you do, once a month in between the Rock the Block, and then on the first of each month we have
And come
the
up with new ideas.
right. You got to come up with new
You know,
ideas. You cut it,
because I
but
just don't believe we're using Canal Square enough
well, we're
for
not. And
things.
and,
Okay.
and here's the problem: you got Steve Napier, who's supposed to be head of economic development.
Yep. You froze again.
In my office, I'd sit down with the girls. I say, "This is the bands we like." They'd make all the contacts. Sometimes they say, "Hey, this band is good," or "We know this band," and we look at them. But we pick the bands,
Yep.
and we put together all of the street parties and festivals. We didn't have we know I know how to do that stuff. That was part of what I knew how to do. Right when I knew how to rebuild the city, and I know how to bring people in. But we need to continue to do that. Otherwise, you're going to go down to Remsen Street and it's going to be dead. You're going to have one or
Yeah.
two places that survive. I go
Yeah.
by tonight. I go by almost every Thursday, Friday night because I pick up my granddaughter and I drive down just to see what's going on. And it's Deadville.
Yeah. It is.
It's Deadville.
It is a
So what's going on with the grants to the music hall? I'm interested in knowing. I know we
Well, I
got
know
some
that we
grants.
got a $500,000. But what are they going to do with that? Okay.
I listen. One of the things that I'd love to be able to see, if you ever went in there and seen the painting, the
Yeah.
architecture, that's one in a lifetime.
Hmm.
This is artwork done by people who were top notch,
Now, are you
right?
talking about the ceiling and
Yeah,
things
I'd
like
love to
that?
be able to see them invest the money to get all of that stuff and probably the roof, you know, the roof repaired because you got to stop the dripping of water so it doesn't ruin it, and all that painting. You'd have to bring in some real specialized people.
Yeah,
But I love to see that process start because when you go in there and look at the artwork, it just amazes you.
yeah. It's
And I'm not even the kind of guy that goes, "Wow, I love art." I
yeah.
just, but when you go in
Well, that
there,
that paint scheme back then that benefited the um, acoustics of the music hall. This is why they back then they use particular paints, and they want to try to duplicate exactly what they
beautiful
used back
acoustics.
then because of the acoustics. They wouldn't let anybody just go into the Troy Music Hall and just paint any way they wanted. They had to bring in specialized people to
Well,
do
you couldn't
something like
just
that.
paint over these paintings. You would
No,
really need somebody who could. You would need an artiste, man.
well, it's
Somebody who you can't
you
get a
need someone
guy.
that does
I
restoration.
love my brother Bobby, but you can't bring Bob Moore's painting in there to paint the
Yeah,
music hall, right? I mean, these are
right.
paintings. These are artwork. This is
Yeah.
artwork. This is people
Well,
that. This is the Picasso
that
type artwork.
right,
I
that
mean,
would be a restoration project,
there you
really.
go. That's a better term,
You
right?
know,
You,
because that's
you,
what you would be doing. You wouldn't be painting, you'd be finding a way to restore that back to as much of its original um, way it was back then. But it is a beautiful music hall for a
Yeah,
small
I
place.
love to see it up and fixed up the best that they can fix it up. Hey, on another good note, congratulations to the Cohoes bowling. The kids from Cohoes High School, and I'm not sure if they're all high school students, but our bowling team went all the way to the states and they finished second place. I mean,
Wow.
yeah, that's amazing, man.
Yep.
I mean, kudos. Um, you know, I wish I could have watched some of the games. I didn't have a chance to watch them. And I've never really watched bowling. I was never a bowler. I'd throw the thing and it ends up 3 lanes over in that gutter. People jump out of the way. They go, "How the hell did that ball go 3 lanes over?" But these kids were amazing, amazing,
Yeah. Yeah.
and uh, and kudos to everybody on that team and getting to the states and coming in second place. I mean, and that they were close. They were right there knocking on the door.
Yeah.
But I was really proud to know that our kids worked so hard to get their bowling team up and be one of the best in the business. So congratulations, Cohoes. You
The
did a
hose.
great job.
Yeah. Now, is that a are they more than one team? Is it all girls, all boys, or a combination of both?
I think it was the boys.
The boys?
When I looked at the picture, again, I'm not really I don't know a
Doesn't
whole lot.
matter. It doesn't
No,
matter
I don't
which
know a whole
one.
lot about bowling, but I think there was the boys bowling team, boys, girls, whoever.
Whoever.
Fantastic job.
Well, they put us on the map a bit.
Yeah, yeah. The girls and the boys put us on the map. Cohost students, both in their hard work academically, but in their hard work playing sports. A lot to be proud of. Cohost got a lot to be proud of. And it's
Yeah.
the people that live here. I always said it's the people that live here that make Cohoes great. When the people stop being great, so won't Cohoes. So let's hope we continue to have great people in our city. But yeah, it was exciting to see that on the news about the bowling team. What else going on? What else going on in the big city?
Well, it's it's basically been a quiet week here. There's a couple things going on with the ethics board. I'd rather wait to see what kind of decisions are coming out of there about a couple of incidents
Can I just
that
ask you
took place.
what went in front of it? Or I heard there was some. I heard not only you went in front of it, but there was some
I did. I
employee.
went before them.
So there
Yeah,
was
and
actually that went.
there's actually two separate complaints that went before the ethics board, and that was back on February 27. Here we are, March 16th,
Well,
and
that's Charlie
they're
Valeni, right?
yeah, they're still
If
investigating.
you're holding your
And
breath for Charlie Valeni, Charlie Valeni's going to try to wiggle out anything he can because you know what?
well,
I think he's a nice guy. I'm not saying he's not a nice guy. Don't get me wrong,
yeah,
folks.
yeah,
Not saying he's a nice guy. But if you think this guy is going to do the right thing by any means, that's going to rock his boat, I don't see it.
well, right here's what troubles me though. Okay, I know the complaints were filed. Um, back in January, mid-January, and it took 6 weeks to get to get a hearing before the ethics.
So you got
Six
an ethics
weeks,
board that probably
okay?
doesn't meet that often because there's not a
No,
lot filed, and it takes them 6 weeks to meet, and then it's taking 17, 18,
and,
19 days to make a decision. Come on, you
yeah,
got one case in front of you.
right. Well, actually, there was two, but in one of the
Oh,
cases,
one case and a half.
they already had documents and records sitting in front of them as part of an investigation before even hearing the complaint. So what happens is you file a complaint, and then they go snooping around to find out what the complaint's all about, and they gather this before they even hear
Yeah.
what you're presenting to them.
I
Okay,
told you, Dave
it just
Emanation is the
totally
guy who
makes no
should be
sense.
running it. Dave Emanation is top notch. I love the guy. I think he's
Yeah,
as honest as the day shines. I don't think you would ever have to question his honesty, his
they need
integrity,
to.
his
Yeah,
character. And I'm not saying that Charlie Valeni should have those things challenged, his honesty, his integrity, but
no.
his courage. You know,
But
his
what?
courage is
Right?
like the lion in the Wizard of Oz. You know,
Yeah,
you got a little courage until you get smacked in the nose by Dorothy, and then all of a sudden you're crying. He don't want to get smacked in the nose by the Dorothy who put him on that board. So I think
right.
you're going to find out. Well, Timmy, you know best. You filed a few of those complaints, and you always get the
Probably
same.
the majority of them.
Yeah,
Look it up.
well,
Let me put it to you in just in numbers were and just you don't. I haven't told you about this before, okay? But I just want you to think statistically. Imagine 30 complaints filed, and only three of them are found valid
out of 30 complaints, and then what
out of
happens to the
30.
ones that were found valid? What they
Okay.
do?
Well, what they do is they go to the council and they make a. It's up to the council members. Okay, what kind of penalty or fine? Like two of those 30 was on Don Russell for
Yeah.
insider
Did he ever
trading.
have to pay his
Yeah,
$500?
yeah, I believe he paid his $500 fine, which he probably took right out of taxpayers' money from his monthly $1,400 fee that he earns
Is he
for being a
running for
council member.
office?
I'm hearing he's not, but who knows? I know he's got two people running against him. But imagine that, okay, of 30 complaints, okay, only three are found being valid, and two of them against a sitting council member, and you don't even have the mayor to come on out and say, hey, for the good of the city, he should step down or consider stepping out of the office. Same mayor, when you were falsely accused, was all over the Times Union saying that you should step down for the good of the city. But here he is silent on a
Well,
man
he
that
wanted me
did
to step down for the
twice.
good of him.
Yeah, exactly. So
Because he
so
knows he
anyway,
could never have beat me if I didn't have to go
right.
through
So,
all that
so this
bullshit.
is what we're waiting on. We're waiting on to see if we're going to get a decision. It's been essentially almost 3 weeks, and we'll see what happens. Okay, but it just I think statistically by the numbers, only getting three for lack of a better word uh let's say violations, okay, where anytime you violate the ethics rules, Sean, you violate the public trust, right?
Yeah,
That's what you're really doing. You're violating the public trust.
fair
and
enough.
and when you and when you end up with only 3 out of 30 complaints, these statistics just say something's wrong. Okay, how do you get only three? That means 27 dismissed,
Yeah.
either not enough evidence or unfounded
Well,
primarily.
I would hope that 99% of them were dismissed because I would hope that what people see from the public and perceive to be something is not the reality of what's happening because I want to entrust that they're doing the right thing. But I
Exactly.
understand your point as well, right? But from my
Yeah.
perspective, Timmy, I want every one of them to be dismissed, not because they didn't do something. Because if they did, they shouldn't be dismissed. But I
Yeah.
want them to be dismissed because sometimes we perceive things from the outside that ain't the true stuff going on in the inside. And that you want to feel comfortable. The problem that you have, Tim, is you don't feel comfortable thinking that somebody who has all this evidence in front of them about a complaint before they even know what the complaint is
Yeah.
really acting in good faith. They're not
Right. And
acting in good faith if they went and got all the phone calls. Hey, this is what they're complaining. Hey, this is what's going on. Give me this, give me that. Then you walk in and they got a pile of stuff to defend the people that
six
you're making a complaint about.
right
That's wrong.
16 pages of record, and then another item. Okay, before even a the matter was brought before the other members. Okay, so you got one member and sitting there and already doing an investigation, and the other two members there are excluded. Okay,
Yeah,
they find out at the meeting. So I
yeah.
think how it really is working is they do have a right to delegate the authority, and they do. They basically saying, look at. Charlie Valenti, you go do the investigation, come back and tell us what you find, and then we'll vote on what you think.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
and then that's what happens. That's
That's
what I
what
think.
happens when you
They
have
really
these
right.
boards.
And it's only a three-member panel. I think it should be expanded to five and let everybody vote. You got a new woman on the board, very nice lady, Melody Netto. She sat there quietly, didn't ask any questions at all. She heard all the evidence that was presented on both ends, but the woman just all she can do is sit there with her hands tied, okay, and can't weigh in.
Tim, if it was
Why
up to
do
me, I'd
that
get rid
to
of all
somebody?
of them because it's all just a dog and pony show. If you want to have real and true, meaningful ethics, then it doesn't happen by the city picking the ethics board year after year after
Yeah,
year, right? It happens when the city says we'll establish it, we'll pick the first
yeah,
person, and then we'll pick the board, and then
right.
every
And we've
two
been through
years
that.
thereafter, the board picks itself, and we have no say in it. But
And
that's
I
not,
think there should be a term limit on there,
yeah.
well, because President Cruz been there nearly 10 years now.
Yeah, yeah, I
I
agree.
think
Hey, listen, so I'm driving up Remsen, no, excuse me,
yep,
I'm driving up Columbia Street, and it looks like a third world country uh, that paved the road up there. I don't know if you've been,
no,
I don't know if you drove up there lately,
yeah, I did.
but I got to ask you a question, right?
Like
So
driving in Beirut.
I told you when you asked me about this big water and sewer separation project that the mayor said that they got these
Yeah,
grants and all that, that was hogwash political bullshit, and
yeah,
everything that I talk about on Truth, Lies, and Political Bullshit. Bullshit. That's a county program that
yeah,
was set up where all cities contribute money towards a pool. And then each year they go around all of the cities and they do infrastructure to separate the water and sewer because, it costs a fortune because no matter what goes in the sewer system, if they're not separated, it all goes down to Albany County and we clean it and we pay to clean it. So we're paying for rainwater to be cleaned. And that's why the water in the city of Cohoes costs you $1,000 a year if you have a sprinkler system or if you're filling up a little pool, because the amount of money that we spend wasted on snow melting that gets sent down
yeah,
to the district, rainwater, whatever.
yeah.
But
That's
I'm going to tell you something. When National Grid was in our city and they were doing millions and millions of dollars of gas line replacement, I had them come in to my office, sit down, and I explained to them my expectations about how they would do their work and how they would leave the city at the end of each day. That I didn't want to drive around the city and go over a pothole that's only filled a quarter way and people's tires falling out. I didn't want to see those rocks that they fill these things scattered all over the roads where kids
yeah,
are picking them up and throwing them and you're running them over with your tires. That I expected that they would clean up and that they could take pride in the work that they did. And every day that I'd go down there, there'd be rocks all over the road. The potholes, the holes that they dug would only be filled, and there'd be a big lip, and you'd hit it with your car and think you lost your front wheel. And so I brought him back in the office, and I said, "Listen, I have to answer to the people. You don't. So either you do what I ask in the way of administrating this major program that you're doing, or we're going to just pull your license. Then you're not going to come to work in our city, and we'll just keep our old gas lines." And believe me, after that meeting, guess what happened? Those potholes were filled, the sidewalks were swept, and I would go down personally at the end of each night and drive everywhere that they were working. And long and behold, they have some of the great workers too, because those workers put in all the effort to keep those streets clean.
yeah.
The city has an obligation to administer these programs. Whoever was in charge of Columbia Street ought to be ashamed because it is a terrible job. They let them do terrible work. They left the roads terrible. They had dust storms that were, filling up people's houses. And now when you drive up there, it is just like it's like driving in a third world country.
It's
And
awful.
then
Yeah,
after you get under the undertow, they got this new wall. Did you see that new
yeah.
wall?
I did. I did.
Now
What's that for?
you tell me that wall fits the decor of our city.
Right.
It looks
What's
like
it
it's some.
for?
I have no idea what it's for, but whatever it's for, it's the ugliest thing I've ever seen. And it doesn't fit the decor. If they're going to put a wall, say they're doing that to, I don't know. Maybe there's
They
some
did
kind of
right.
vows, or I have no idea what it's
They
for.
did something with the dirt with a big like mound type of thing right by James Street in
But
Columbia
I will
in
tell you
that park.
that wouldn't be the wall that I would have let them put in there.
No, it doesn't. It looks out
It
of
looks
place actually.
ugly.
You
It
know.
looks like it's something out of one of those video games where you break down the wall. Rah, and I'd love to hear what the citizens think when they're driving down Columbia Street, if they think the city did a good deed by letting them put up that wall. Now, maybe there had to be a wall, but there had to be a better looking stone. There had to be something that matched the decor of the city,
Yeah.
not these big, ugly, I don't know, bricks
They look.
that
They look
they,
like some kind of granite type of
they
looking
look like a
things.
castle belongs there.
Yeah. Yeah.
The
Yeah. Yeah.
castle's missing. It's got the
But
base.
but when you look at the wall, you really see the background hill that just
Yeah, I
detracts
just,
from it.
what bothers me is that why they don't do the work. They are in charge of those doing the work.
Yes.
Kenny Ratliff was the head of DPW. Now it's Steve Hennessy. The charter says that it is the head of DPW that has the authority over anybody doing work within our community.
Yeah, that's true. The commissioner.
Because the mayor should be able to call the commissioner and say, I don't like that. I don't like the way they're, and I would do it every day because at 5 in the morning, you know what I did, Tim? I drove around the whole city. I stopped at every project. I got out of my car. I took notes. And then the first meeting we had in the morning, I called Kenny Ratliff and say, you need to go see National Grid. You need to do this. This is terrible. This is bad. And you know what? When you laid it on them, they fixed it. Here's the other thing we did. National Grid said, we're going to dig up only like a quarter of the road. I said, well, here's what you're going to do, or you're not going to do it here. You're going to dig up a quarter of the road, but when it's time to pave, you're going to pave half the road, and
Hmm.
we'll pave the other half. And it was a way for us to get paving done at half the cost. Since
Yeah.
they're ripping up the road, our resolution was then you pave from the curb out to the middle.
Yeah.
And it saved us tens of thousands of dollars.
Instead of a little 2 foot wide
That's
path.
right.
Yeah.
Now, if you drive around, you know what you see? You see
They're all
somebody
over
who,
the place.
because nobody took the time to make sure that it was going to be a great job and squeeze the best out of it that you could for the residents, which means fix, because 95% of streets that are screwed up are not from curb to middle, it's middle. The curbs
Yeah.
all along are usually not full of potholes. It's usually the only part of a street that's still in good shape. So when you do the middles, you're able to
Well,
cut out all of the potholes.
the way
I
Columbia Street looks right now, it looks like a Picasso.
well, they
All the
didn't. I
different
mean,
shapes, cuts, and everything. Crossing the road here, then 50 feet up another
I just don't get
road.
it. I
It's
don't
just
understand why the city didn't take pride in saying we're in charge of overseeing this
once it
beautiful.
was done, they just should have went and paved it all, cleaned it all up at once.
Before they left, I would have
Yes,
said we
this
would have
ain't no
had it
good.
worked out in my office before it even happened.
Yeah.
I guarantee he never met with those people because he's never there, or if he is there, he doesn't meet with people. He don't talk to people. You can't get into his office. It's like the state police barracks,
Well,
right? I
where
don't.
was he before he even became mayor? Where was he in the city doing anything?
Well,
Didn't he?
he wasn't in the city for the longest time. He lived outside the city, but then he built a beautiful house. And hey, kudos to him and his family. He's got a beautiful house. He's a
Yep.
Cohoesier, got a great bunch of daughters. They dedicated their life to our schools, their teachers, and
Yep.
whatever. I'm not saying they're not good family. I'm saying if you're going to take on the job and tell everybody why you're so great at it, then do a great job. Because the reality is, it's a terrible job. The streets are terrible.
Yeah, they
When
are.
you go down,
They
when
are.
you look at that wall,
Especially Columbia being a main street as well.
yeah. Well, hopefully they got some of the second grants that we applied for because a lot of we applied for phase twos and threes, so all they would have to do is resubmit them. We already did all the work and hired the companies to help us
Yeah,
put together great
I
plans.
think they're probably when they get this phase two, where's it gonna? Where
Well, we
it's
wanted to go all
probably
the way
gonna
up
be from.
Columbia Street because
Yeah,
we wanted to go all the way
they're
up
gonna end
past.
up paving a whole street. Yeah,
Well, we wanted to do all the sidewalks as well because that's where our kids walk to school. We're a walk-in school district. We're not a bus,
yeah,
so all those torn up sidewalks and that wall going along, Columbia Street, that's private property, I believe. So it's falling apart.
yeah.
There's got to be some kind of way to address that. I don't know if it needs to be all ripped down and rebuilt. I don't know if the city can do it. I don't know if part of a grant can do it. That's not for me to decide. I'm not, that
Yeah.
takes a lot of time. I'm not giving that much
Well,
time
you
to.
got 2 walls. You got that one, and you got the one at the end of Manor Avenue by the
Yeah,
falls,
and there was an
which is
argument
all
to be
falling
made.
apart.
Well, and you got the one at the end
And that's
of
Brookfield, right?
where your brother lives.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That was the
Right.
railroads.
Down there, yeah, down
These are
there,
major,
by,
major things that need to be addressed, and it's going
yeah,
to take a lot to address them. But and the other thing is, I still hear the trains blowing their horns, and I don't know why because we spent a lot of time, a lot of money, and a lot of effort to become a quiet zone. So
yeah, and I can hear them up here
I don't know why the
when they're
city
going,
hasn't taken them on and taken on that battle. We had them
yeah,
shut right down. They every once in a while they blow a horn and say, "Oh, it was a new conductor. He didn't know." But for the most part, we had them shut down, and now you hear them all the time again. So I don't
yeah,
know.
yeah, we can hear them from, look at way up here, up by, Berkeley, Park, okay? We can hear the trains blowing horns, all the way up here.
I'm interested in
They
seeing what
echo
they're
right up the falls.
I'm interested in seeing what they're doing in Lansing's Park. Are they going to turn that into the dog park? I mean, that's the part that we set money aside, and that's where we were going to make the dog park.
Well, we'll see, once they get it all graded, you
I don't
know,
know what they're doing there. I don't know if it's going to be a dog park, if they're going to put playground equipment in there. I really
you would
don't
think
know.
that we know who's in the fourth ward. Billy McCarthy?
Well, yeah, well, asking Billy McCarthy.
He's your council member now. You ought to
Yeah,
give
he's
him a
my
call.
councilman. I'm going to have to call him up. The only thing is he doesn't know when the meetings are, and he doesn't know he's the president, does he?
No, I don't know.
Every
And,
time you call him, he says, or every time you ask him something, he's got to ask somebody else.
well, you ask Chris Briggs, okay? That's what he does. He
Hey,
asks Chris
listen,
Briggs.
we can speak the truth because nobody can hit us with the hammer no more. We can talk about the city. We can share what we know. I love Cohoes. It's a great community, has great people, has a long way to go. I think it's going backwards. That's just my opinion. I hate the wall. When you look to the right coming down Columbia Street, it looks out of place. I wish they would have never let that company fill in that roadway the way they did. It is a shitty job, and who knows if they're going to fix it. Maybe it's going to get ripped out again, and they're going to continue to work. I'm not sure, but even if it's only temporary, it should have been as good as it was before they did it, and it is worse now than ever.
Yeah,
So hopefully, and I'd also love to see the flags get put back up on the bridges, the ones that says
yeah,
thank you for coming and welcome to Cohoes, and then the ones for the historical Van Skyke Island. I thought those flags were classy. People called me up and said it's so nice to see all these little things that make you
yeah,
feel proud and be
yeah,
Cohoes proud. So hopefully they'll get those things back up because they haven't had them up for 3 years, so they probably threw them away as well
yeah, with the gateway signs.
with the gateway signs. But I did
Yeah.
see the shit shacks. They're leaning up against the old
DPW
DPW,
garage on Central Avenue, uncovered.
uncovered, just thrown
Okay,
up. It's
getting
only
rained
twenty
on,
three
snowed
thousand
on.
dollars. Maybe we should have Steve Napier on. Why don't you call City Hall and ask Steve Napier to come on the show? I mean, he'll have a fair shake. We're not going to beat him up. Nobody's going to hurt him. Love to hear about his future economic development and what his education and his skill set is for that position. I'll send him an email tomorrow and invite him on the show.
Yeah, well, if you looked at his last picture, behind Killer, okay, I mean, he's sticking his head out, you
Yeah,
know, to get
yeah.
in the photo.
He's got it. They hey, listen. I always said this, and I still say this, and I didn't go to a lot of them. What I would do is when the business opened up, I would show up on some of them that we may had some role in,
Yeah,
or I would go to them and have a special little function after they opened and welcome them to the city.
yeah. But you can't make them all. I
Right.
understand that.
But
Yeah,
here's the bottom line. There's not a politician in any of those pictures that had anything to do with any of those businesses,
yeah,
right? The business has to come to the city. The business has to invest their
yeah.
money. You may have helped them. Maybe there's some grants. Maybe they got some kind of
Well, the
monies. And
CLDC more so.
right, but again, you can't go to cut a ribbon while the houses are burning down and there's people who are looking to you towards for their leadership. And I still think that was a mistake. But
Yeah, it was.
you know, hopefully with the money that's being raised and all the help that's being done, those people are in good shape. Timmy, outside of that, I don't know anything that I missed. Anything else that's going on that we
Well,
should be
I
talking about?
think we're good to go till next week. I think what we do have to do is put out a blooper reel.
Well, hey, listen, there's a blooper. There's one coming. I promise you. I
If
mean, we
people have no
started.
idea how hard it is to get these podcasts together. It took us 9 hours today
Yeah,
just to try to get our system to connect to be able to do this.
yeah, and then
You
you're going to
know,
see two grown up men that couldn't stop laughing at each other. It's going to be
Jesus.
fun. We're going to put it out there. You can watch behind the scenes, the bloopers of
Behind the
the.
scenes there, the bloopers, like the backgrounds here, they're virtual backgrounds with artificial intelligence. Okay, the last time I was in the where was I?
You
I
were in the
was in
Oval
the
Office, and then Joe
Oval
Biden was
Office.
calling you.
Then I did I was in the music hall. Now I'm in I don't know, probably in somebody's house.
It
I
looks
think
like
I'm in
you're in somebody's.
Killer's house.
Hey, listen, everybody. Thanks for joining Cohoes, the good, bad, and the ugly. I hope you like our podcast. We're going to continue to have it every week. We encourage people to send us some emails, send us some ideas. When we're talking about our hometown, we want to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly. And we
Yeah,
don't want to be the only ones out there every day trying to figure out what the hell's going on. And of course, we will do that because we want the show to be successful. You can
yeah,
also watch Truth, Lies, and Political Bullshit, my podcast that we do one show a week. And we're starting to get ready to do two shows a week. We're up to over 20,000 people following us. And Timmy's got the Fifth Ward podcast. He's doing a great job. He just put out the tutorial or the education on the Cohoes birthday. If you haven't seen it, man, you got to watch it because it makes you go, holy Christ, what happened? And I like to say to Mrs. Dingley, she'd be proud of me because I didn't swear today. Or maybe because I had to make 5 other cuts as part of the bloopers.
yeah. Right. As part of the bloop, we had to edit them out.
But anyway, Timmy, it's good to see you. And
Hey,
everybody, stay safe. Happy St. Patrick's Day. I hope you can drink some green beer, but you get home safely. Remember, there's always Ubers and taxis and ways to get home without driving. And until next week, Sean Morse from Truth, Lies, and Political Bullshit.
yep. And this is Tim with the Fifth Ward. We'll see you next time.
See you later.